talk to you about that. So the first ones that are being removed from the policy are outlined on page 3 of the PowerPoint. And that is the al fresco dining and the hawkers and mobile activities. That will be covered under the trading in public places bylaw. We just believe that's a better place for it. Stock movement across roads and droving stock across roads was also covered in the policy, but it's also in the bylaw to make it compliant legislation, and so that we don't have to amend both if anything changes. It's just going to be in the bylaw moving forward, rather than covered in both. The one that was sort of highlighted in the different colour is road stopping. So we are looking at the potential for that to become standard policy.
What is road stopping?
So it's when you take sort of a bit of road.
What we did with Park Road last meeting.
Right, unformed legal road that's no longer needed or cut off. Yeah, and then sold to.
Yeah, well, it's really wide, wide road reserve and someone wants to take it about, because, obviously it makes more sense with the development.
So we're looking at that becoming a standalone policy because it's actually managed by property. The only reason it was in here is because it had the word road in the title, but we don't actually look after that except providing sort of guidance if they have questions for us. Then we're looking at the significant changes. I apologise with the printout. It's sort of one of them that says temporary traffic management.
It's a lot better than that TV, right?
So temporary traffic management will now be renamed to working on or near road reserve. It's just a better reflection of what that process actually is, which is about getting not just the homes and things that goes on the road, but the permissions that work around that as well. We've merged some of the related topics in there, such as the event and civil work road closures, because they are related to that. They don't need their own subcategories. And we've introduced a new section which is specific to motorsport events, which I'll talk about in a second. But before that, reference to the code of practice for temporary traffic management, known as COPTM, has been removed because it's been replaced by a new guide, which is risk based, and Health and Safety at Work Act. So we're just sort of bringing that in line with the NZTA guidelines from central government. So to continue with the motorsport events, this is a new section that's never previously covered. We're not trying to, stop people from coming and using the roads for their motorsport events. It's just to sort of cover bases, so it includes pre and post event inspections in case they cause damage with the activity. Additional public notification requirements for locals on those roads. Specific conditions about how we want those roads to be reinstated after the event, and the option for us to bond the the organiser, just in case they do cause damages that we have to go and tidy up.
But yeah, it's definitely not about stopping those events. We encourage those events, but it's about us having an opportunity to work with them, ensuring the perfect roads, perfect times, location,
Have to subsidise those events, right?
and manage the risk around damage to vehicles.
For the next one that's changed is fingerboard signs. So what that is talking about is the directional signs that aren't street names. It's more like there's a dentist over here or what have you.
Winery and ones to sort of brownie see out there.
So we've renamed this to discretionary signs. That's because they're privately owned signs and they're not mandatory for the function of the road. But what we do want to do is move away from the non-standard fingerboard. So essentially the brown colour should be reserved for tourist activities, and at the moment they're often used for things that are unrelated to that, and also the size of them is not compliant with legislation. So essentially we're just aligning with the traffic control devices manual, which is legislated. However, any existing signs that are in place, we will let them sort of carry on until the end of their functional life, and when it comes to replacing them, they'll either need to be upgraded, and if they don't want to do that, we'll remove them. It just avoids clutter and restrictions on things. So one of the next changes is dust suppression. Currently in the 2015 policy, residential properties that are within 100 metres of an unsealed road are eligible for a 100-metre length of dust suppression ceiling. And we cover the full cost of this, but it is subject to funding and metalling schedule. The policy also references oiling, which is now a prohibited activity, you can't do that anymore. So
There's how the double dispersion is.
yes, so dust suppression sealing is essentially a type of seal that goes down on a freshly metalled road, and it just sort of binds that surface together just to avoid that dust rising up and going to these properties.
Is there a similar planning function where you prevent or discourage people from building new houses within 100 metres of a gravel road?
That will be moved into the next session with what we're going to propose. So we've had a look around other local councils, so Clutha, Gore, Dunedin, they do offer double suppression sealing, but at 50% for the applicant that wants it. And Waitaki, Southland and Queenstown Lakes, they don't offer a subsidy at all. If you want to get dust suppression sealing, it's at your own cost.
Yeah, I was surprised council would take on the berth.
Yes, so it's, most of the other councils have moved away from it. It seems that we're the only one that's still offering that. So what we're proposing is to introduce the 15% subsidy for the properties, but we're for properties that were built or sited prior to the enactment of the policy. So any new builds after this is 100% their cost.
Sandflat Road, does that cover this? It does.
No, so that would be sealing the road. So that would be seal extension in terms of, like a fully sealed road as opposed to dust pretty. This is more what people do sort of outside driveways or near houses. So if you're driving down a gravel road and pass the driveway and you go over a bit of seal for 100 metres and then keep going. This was the product that was used on Baby Over the Road. Instead of being up in different things like that. So it's, to most people, it appears like a normal sealed road, but it's not. It's actually
It looks quite similar, but it's not as structurally sound. There's been no sort of work done on the pavement structure and things like people.
Geometry and no safety improvements or anything, all those things that you would do when you do a full reconstruction or seal extension.
It's really just a fine, close fine. Particles so they don't get caught up in the wind.
A little bit on McNabb Road, probably as well, for example.
yeah, that's a great example. Or if you're heading up to do the Carringtown walk, parts of Gully Schoolhouse, the Gully, that would be an eco seal past the sort of where these caravans are.
Yeah.
Yeah, would be another example of an eco seal.
So essentially ineligible properties can still request that through council but they would be paying 100% for that.
And so with that, we're putting up the option for 50% subsidy to council as part of the policy. Council will have the option to consider providing no subsidy and a property owner near the road would be the full cost of that 100 metres. There's probably about 10 to 12 to $15,000 cost.
Yeah. Depends on where they are. Yeah, borough, establishment, things like that, but they range between about 10 and 10,000. So, and we've got a lot of them on the network as well, so it's a bit of a ticking time bomb. But somehow we need to try and recover some costs out of it to, well, Steve should have additional budget to actually look after the ones that we've got out here, the new ones coming online.
Then we'll just have a look at some additional policies. So these that were not included in it at all, but there were things that it's a day-to-day roading service, so we just want to put it in the policy. So it's reflected there. Road lighting, that was essentially just our expectations around the type of luminaires and poles that are used and making sure that it complies with our public spaces lighting policy for dark skies and things like that. No spray zones and overweight and over dimension vehicle permits will also be included as well.
Is road lighting just going to refer to a New Zealand standard?
Largely, and some pre-approved poles and luminaires that they won't need to get permissions for.
Like the Phillips Road, Grace, that'll be a go-to.
And then just some other general improvements that have come about with the policy review is that we'll be updating or creating forms and there will be a live document that's searchable. So, the legislation will be linked and everything like that, just so it's easy and for people to use.
Are you going to touch on bollards for parts in that policy, or is that a reserved question?
That one would probably lead more on the legislation for public space lighting, I would
I
say.
don't think there is any standards.
Yeah, and there has been developments where we've worked with the developer around the use of lighting or low lighting, or pathways and different things like that. What the lighting section tends to do is make it easy tick box exercise for a certain pole and luminaire types. However, still opening up to using an alternative that meets spec. But it's obviously just through an approval process. But if you're just delivering a standard system, it makes the approval a lot easier.
So I don't think there's any, you'll never find a standard on the amount of light they put out or the spacing. Like even the suppliers say they're useless lights, they're basically cameras to aim for when you're walking down the path.
EP, is there any opportunity with this new roading policy to look after the poor rural community that are being held victim by cantankerous neighbours over roads?
That is civil matter, private roads, they're not fall under this policy.
There's no opportunity to at least force those people that own those roads to do things to keep them to a reasonable level of standard.
Unfortunately, that's a civil matter.
But we know you're paying.
Thank you.
Thank
you. So this, final draft of the policy is just underway, and we're just going around with community board feedback, just so that there's aware what is going on to council as part of the policy action.
You can upload the pictures of the crossings at the end of like page 199.
Part 29, yeah, as part of the series, we have part 29, it's no substantial.
Actually, quick question, is there anything in here around cycleways, anything like that?
No, not in terms of, in terms of like footpath.
Yeah, just the fact that, I mean, as our population grows, that's going to be something that will no doubt to be affected by.
It would like to be just covered by the government cheap work individually and not necessarily a policy around that. It's a big case by case basis based on the project.
Okay.
Thanks all.
Thank you.
Thank you, sorry to keep you waiting so long.
That's all right.
Was our public forum epic? I don't think we're still live. Oh, shall I go get Alex? Yeah, it's coming. Say. Just don't tell us. Alex, I'm sorry, picture waiting.
You're all good. I've been following it in 10 minutes, so we're gonna try. I can have 34. 35.
Yeah. Pushing it, let's see how people's brains are going at this end of the day. It's 12 o'clock.
I think it's a bit of cat and mouse.
I'm just forward to this.
It's been pushed back to you.
Obviously, it's just live.
Yeah.
Right.
The bit back to seniors, if you don't mind just circulating the link to ALT and we can just get started. When it stops trying to send it. Do we have any things to start with that? Oh, actually, should we? Here we go. Back bits.
I'll go get my copy.
Could you just colourful in something here?
Okay, so we're talking from our community board priorities for the long term plan. And we're building off the strategy session you've done. So what we've done is take what you said on that day, put it into this format, and what we need to do at this meeting is just sense check it, review, make sure it's right, make sure I've ticked the right boxes and add anything that's occurred to you since. So that's slide 1 in the introduction. Slide 2 is the LTP team, which will skip over time. You'll see the stars in the bottom of it. And then slide 3 is the timeline from here. What you most need to know from that slide is that we'll take the feedback from today with all other community boards and feed that to the March council meeting, and then we'll be back to you in April or May to say what happened there and what's going to happen next. Our next date we've got scheduled in to be here is August, and then we can come up with that as often as you like. And on slide 4, I've summarised the strategic scan that Sarah circulated to you. We think it's good, you should read it. The main takeaways is the serious level of financial constraint and a large amount of uncertainty coming. So we'll start at slide 5, the strategic priorities. These came from a session that council did with Alicia McFly, similar to the sessions that all the community boards did of how they'll be making decisions in the coming term, including the LTP. 50% of the focus is on funding and making sure that we're less dependent on rates in central government, that we're more able to spend it and invest, and that we're looking at ways to share those costs and risks with others. 25% is in that protection space and looking after what we've got, custodians of local identity. This is where our sustainability and resilient infrastructure sits. And it's really about being future focused and protecting what we have. And then our 15% beyond that is on attracting more. So that's how those decisions will be made. And then we've got 10% on regional leadership going forward. I pulled out the themes from the strategy day that each board has done. For yours, I've pulled out community connection, planning for growth, sustainability and resilience, vibrancy, pride and celebration, use of public space, sports and outdoors, and communication, which is the theme across all of them. Which really brings us to the nuts and bolts on slide 7, as long as that makes sense to you all. And that is these specific projects. The chart you'll see in front of you is sized along with council's sizing there. And I've just tried to put ticks where I felt that there was a case in each of those boxes. The main one I wanted to talk through with you was problem vision, to make sure all of these are things that you put in the LTP itself, or some of them are things the board will advocate for openly. And if there are boxes I've missed ticking that should be ticked, these are the most boxes I've ticked ever. So I think you've managed to get ticks across the board on most of them. And we will pause there and look for feedback.
CCB themes, I think more than just, something that I took out of that workshop was more than just planning for growth, like the growth will come, but actually how do we encourage economic growth within, like I think we need to be really front footed with that. I'm not sure if you guys agree. From that is what I was really trying to.
The impression I got from reading it too.
Yeah. Whereas planning for growth, at least that wording kind of sounds very Queenstown, like, oh, the growth will come, so we better be reactive to it, I think. We need to encourage it. Yeah, I think, it's like economic development, right? Like it was the whole thing that we came up with was a great place to play, work and live, right? And work is an important part of that. We need jobs for our young people, which requires economic growth. Yeah.
Owning it rather than just reacting to it.
Yeah.
It's the difference, isn't it?
It's probably Queenstown.
Yeah.
And if we look at the list that Alex has pulled together, what should go in the LTP is stuff that needs funding. So there'll be stuff that this board will work on, and that might be the Cromwell Vision one that Alex really wants to talk to you about. And all that, the community development work that you're all involved in. But in terms of what we need to call for council is that we've talked to the Cromwell Community Board. These are the projects that they are looking at for inclusion in the LTP. So that, I think, as we cast sort of that lens over it, the stuff that attracts some dollars.
You're speaking a bit of language than this. I can't follow this table. I like what you just said, but I can't follow this table and how what you said fits in this table.
So what Alex has done is the strategic priorities that council have.
Yeah.
Funding, protection, attraction, and regional leadership.
Yeah.
From that original strategy session, Alex has pulled the projects and topics that come through, and has basically, without being in the room for that conversation too as well, has tried to align them with the strategic priorities of council. Because the council said funding's the most important thing we're going to look at, and projects from all the community boards don't even tick any of those boxes. That's going to be a hard sell for all our community boards. Does that make sense?
Tick the funding box. It means in the way you listed or discussed it, it had a funding angle that met the priorities that listed them.
So these are what we got out of the strategy session as to what we want to focus on, how that's the framework for how we're making all of our decisions moving forward. Because when the decisions get harder, we've got to have a reason to say yes. So probably not quite as clear if you were in the middle of that conversation, but that's the weighting we put on each of those. That's that 53 foot lot. So that was how we weighted that, and then you score against it, don't you?
Yeah.
But
We went through them one by one and we had an hour, which I'm happy to do if you'd like.
It might be beneficial to do a high level though, like I get it because I was there for that and it was a really good session, I think it would be a bit glib to just say. We did that, like it's actually really important how we landed on it.
I don't follow this table.
Alright, let's go back to the slides.
And in council, we now sit every meeting with the explanations of those 4 topics laminated on a piece of paper instead of standing with us. That's how much of a priority this has to be in our decision making, so I think it's good to.
So if we jump back to slide 5, we've got funding as a priority. So what we did on the Alicia Mackay Day is we put all of the projects up on the board and everything council wanted to prioritise. And then Alicia put up a table that was about the ability we had to influence it versus, what was on the other axis?
The ability to change.
The ability to influence and the ability to make change. And we went through them one by one, or council did, we watched from the side. And then Alicia was really almost a bit mean, wasn't she, Sarah? She's cool. You can't have all of this. Will anyone be upset if I take away this? And then she started to take away more, and then she took away more, and what we were left with was the nuts and bolts that everyone agreed with that came up as the highest priorities. And then we went through a process of council determining how much focus they put, and what I would call a polite negotiation of the amount of weighting on each one of them, and then we reached a consensus everyone would agree with. What that means is that not every tick is equal. If you have a tick in the funding box, that would have a 50% rating. So
What does funding actually mean?
funding, and that should be on the slide if you can jump in and read it. So
It's on the
it should
table.
have an angle that reduces our reliance on ratepayer funding and increases affordability.
So reducing ratepayer costs might be the better way to, okay.
Reducing ratepayer.
Where's the funding coming from?
Yeah.
LTP? Yeah.
Yeah, alternative funding,
Diversifying income.
Gotcha, yeah.
all of those in one lot.
Kate's quiet.
Yeah, if you picture it a bit like a funding application, when things are weighted differently, so quite often we put an application and if you answer this question, it's weighted differently to the others. So that's what this model looks like. And then when we move on to the table on slide 7, those gaps on the table are representing the size of the pie. So I just made a table of 10 columns and divided it up, so that it's set as the percentages. So you could clearly see when you have a tick in that funding box, you've got more points towards that project than one where you have a tick in the blue box or the purple one.
Can we just spend a couple of minutes talking about each of those priority areas?
Yeah. Would you like to?
The funding, so the funding one was about diversifying revenue, lessening impact on, lessening the need to take breaks. And so all the different ways that might happen. Protection was Central Otago is growing and changing as custodian of our local identity. Council wants to manage growth, keep people connected and make smart infrastructure decisions. Much of this is taken out of our hands, but there's still plenty that we can do. So it's around infrastructure, future focused decisions, local identity, protecting landscapes and character and community influencing visitors and workers that we attract. So exactly your point about not being Queenstown. And that's that 25% weighting, and then attraction was Central Otago's vibrant place, lots of ways to live and make a living. We want it to stay that way. So we have workers, families, innovation and spirit to keep us moving into the future. Focus on supporting new industries and businesses, tourism and economic development, social infrastructure partnerships, education, impact, employment and health. And then there was quite a discussion on the day about influence really, and what influence that we at Central Otago have nationally and regionally. And so the final was important enough to list as a priority, which was regional leadership. We play an active role in shaping the future of Otago, working with our neighbours and coordinating regionally. But advocacy, influencing coordination, working with our neighbours.
And just to be clear, as council works through the LTP, there is of course some stuff that council does that we have to do, right? And it might be, this is the framework of which councillors such as Sarah are going to decide some of the big stuff. But just because it didn't get a tick in the funding box doesn't mean it's done a discount. It's just a bit of a framework as council move through. I think it's going to be a pretty tough LTP, especially if there's rate stepping passes.
If someone's got to
That
give,
they
they
can-
have a reason for it to give.
Yeah,
So,
two things they've got to compare it against, and this is
Yeah.
their matrix.
There's nothing with the way that things are looking at the moment with this current government, there is no way the funding could be less than 50%.
Yeah, yeah. And why Cromwell Master Plan obviously gets a token, obviously Alex will go through if you want with each of them, is, you know, the opportunity for economic growth, for, investment, you know, the hotel conversation you've just had. So it's quite a broad thinking lens that Alex has cast over this by in terms of, which has gone through.
Can you explain to me why the regional, the Common Master Plan didn't have a tick? Because I would have thought that it would be huge for people. in
Does.
central-
Does.
On the island. So,
Regional leads,
It could, that's exactly why we're here to talk to you all to
Yeah.
make sure.
okay.
Yeah,
Because I think you're right, I think.
Well, it certainly did
in
in
the plan, it's like what Terrace just did today.
Capital essential, that's the plan.
we are updating it while we talk.
Yeah.
So, and Terrace came and said, we have a plan, here's our voice, listen to us, and that's what your master plan is.
It also, I'm just trying to pull
Well,
it.
what I would say then is, under the sub-regional deal, we have to do a sub-regional spatial plan across the district. And also under the simplified local government, we have to do a regional spatial plan. All that's within the next 2 years. And in the intervening time, we've had, since we did the master plan, and we did the Vincent master plan, Tevye, next one is Maniatoto master plan. And so probably right now, we've probably got about as many master plans as we can deal with right now, because we have to do a regional one, have to do a sub-regional one. That's going to consume quite a lot of effort.
But the reason I.
What does that mean for the Common Master Plan?
Well, I think the Commonwealth plan will probably get picked up because we have to do a sub-regional spatial plan as part of the regional deal requirement. And we've also got to do a regional spatial plan, Otago regional, as part of the simplified local government requirement. So there's two things that have been directed to us. So I think the sub-regional spatial plan will actually be the time that we will be updating the master plan here, because it has to fold in Queenstown Lakes District Council.
So do you think that when we're doing that sub-regional one as well, when we're updating that spatial plan for Cromwell, we will look at Pizer, Bannockburn,
Different.
Tara?
We have to look at
They weren't really included,
the
yeah.
districts.
So that will
That
probably
will
pick up,
fold into the
Yeah.
regional spatial plan. So
so that'll pick up the work that the gentleman who's.
And it could become Bannockburn as well.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, well, I think we have to, if we're seeing ourselves as Cromwell, and those are the parts of our ward that aren't included in our current spatial plan, we need to be thinking about them, don't we? Do you think, you know, we've got the development of the Parkburn Quarry coming basically in the Piper spatial plan space, we need to know what that looks like.
Yeah.
The ring fence never included the quarry. Back in-
No, it didn't, no, and we didn't really include Bannockburn, and we didn't really include
the
Tara.
master
so-
plan stated.
It is, yeah, so updating a spatial plan there would be,
So the reason for doing that as part of the regional deal was so you can look at these new spatial plans, and then the regional deal will look at transport networks and all that sort of stuff that feed off that, right?
okay.
The reason I tipped the funding one for that as a cost is that nice through line you had of all decisions being made consistently through it. And it sounds like that can still be done, so I'll just update that.
I suppose it's like what you've said, that this is now, you know, council's using this, sitting there with those priorities as part of the decision-making process, that makes very sense.
I think Cromwell Vision looks similar to me. The reason it doesn't have ticks is because I wasn't confident that would be an LTP priority for you all compared to one you developed yourselves internally. But
I think you're probably right, I think this is probably still internal conversations and stuff we can think about, and instead of it being district-wide, it's, that one is much more just about us, isn't it?
Yeah,
Proper
just
vision of
about-
values, it's not got LTP.
and that was something that this board was thinking of driving and leading, wasn't it? So it's
Yeah.
not like we're gonna bring in a consultant and need budget for it. It was something that this board, as we go through this year, was keen to develop. Yeah.
I think that we've probably got the expertise in the room to be able.
Yeah.
And you had some quite some good vibes going.
Number two, Common Vision. Do that ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, well, that's ours to do, isn't it? Well, the town centre, unfortunately, where it says funding 50% is probably, it's gonna cost us. Rather than bring in any funding. No, that is Small thinking, that is small thinking, isn't it? No, but I mean, when we're talking about those things that we were talking about earlier with Dylan giving us a bit of an update on some thinking around accommodation options that where those spaces might be, and we've already talked about that northwest quadrant and what our opportunities are to do something different in those spaces, so.
Your strategy
yeah.
document also talks about staging it, identifying quick wins to deliver the most cost-effective projects. And I just felt you had enough in this document that I could confidently tick that one.
Yeah, right, cool.
I think all five of us are pretty hell bent on figuring out how to keep rates under control. Yeah, so,
That's spelling up in your text.
yeah.
Sport and recreation precinct strategy. I didn't tick funding because I couldn't find the through line, but it seems to tick definitely protection and faction, arguably regional, although potentially out of region benefits. But does anyone want to make a case that they ticked more?
I think there is a really big opportunity for a regional indoor sports centre where people pay really good money. I think it could be a commercial facility. I mean, we grew up in Wellington and you'd pay good money to go and play indoor cricket and so on and so forth.
I think sports fields and indoor stadiums is the definition of regional leadership.
Yeah, I think they definitely fit under regional.
There is-
How can we fit them up, how can we fit it under funding? It has to have an economic benefit. If it fits under funding, I suppose it's bringing, if it is a regional facility, it's gonna bring people here.
As long as Sarah can justify it, I can tick it.
I would love to pull people from Wanaka for indoor football.
If you had the cricket stadium, I like it home, would be a lot easier.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm just thinking about like if we did build one, yeah, that is when you bring people from Queenstown who doesn't have one and bring people from Wanaka who don't have them to come to Cromwell to spend their money. You know, I have no idea around the economics of running a sport and recreation indoor facility, but I would almost think that a private operator would be an option there to have.
Interest trust.
Yeah.
Just
But those are the
we're
things.
providing the land, we don't provide all the funding, right? Like if it's gonna be a regional benefit, we need to have that discussion.
Yeah, that's it, we wanna, if it's gonna be regional and you want, the QLDC wanted as well, then they can stump some money in.
And they were happy, like those conversations we had, it's not the same guy anymore, but Simon Backtrip when he was there, and we had that engagement session back in the in the sports club. And he said to me, the easiest thing you could do for QLDC is build something here and they just pour money into it, 'cause it's in the middle of their two warring factions that will never agree on where something should be. So give it to us and they will pay.
Like hospital.
And then when you're fractured, you're halfway, or you just go next to it, next.
We do have a multi-use sports facility on the 2-year plan as well, just so you're all aware, there are 2 boards looking at that.
But it's different, the same as the central as Hogan Youth.
Supporting tourism and economic development, this arguably should have a regional leadership tick too. I just couldn't find the specific words that let me do it.
I would say that it's specific things that will let us do it, the completion of, the lake, the facility by the lake. And the,
Lake, by the lake.
by the lake,
Lake centre.
it's not a lake, it's a road river.
In terms of your LTP though,
Yeah.
what would we be putting in the LTP? What would we be saying to council that the Cromwell Community Board, is it to
Hotels.
hotels? Okay,
It's planning for hotel and accommodation growth.
Yeah,
so that's.
planning for
the work that
hotels.
Dylan's
It's a
initiated.
combination and activity, isn't it?
Okay.
Yeah, so you've got activities, because you've got all of the cycle trails
That's really good.
at Cromwell, don't they?
But the sport hub and everything, that all comes in the same.
Yeah,
because they're
and then
no-
you've got, if you've got the accommodations, then people can actually, you can have tournaments here, because people can stay here.
So in terms of accommodation, does that extend for this board to affordable housing? Do you want to? Especially, I know it's part of the regional deals conversation going on. I know council looked at gosh about 3 years ago. Is that something?
Church developments wash their own face anyway.
They do, so I think it's probably, you know, this council owns 98 elderly pension homes, they've got quite a bit of equity behind them, council owns the land. There's the potential that council could do something like that by putting it into a chip, an existing chip or create a chip, and then that could turn that around and redevelop and also add to the portfolio.
pretty clear in the meeting that Tamer and I had with MSD on Monday that there is no funding for social housing. But also, it's really hard to prove a need because nobody puts themselves on a waiting list for social housing in Central Otago or in Cromwell because they know there is nothing.
There isn't anything.
They found 12 available rentals. And out of those, 2 would be classed as affordable and they were both in Alexandra, not in Cromwell anyway.
What's the chances convincing James Palmer to build something? Or fund
Well,
something?
I think the Queenstown Lakes Charitable Housing Trust has got a reasonable track record. They are looking to potentially expand, and under the sub-regional deal, you know, we are linked to them, so there's the potential that they could be something that they could do within our district. And so, look, I do think housing affordability, I think housing is going to come up.
I think their remit, their setup, the way that they're established means they can't operate outside of QLBC. So it would be going in and looking back in their constitution and thinking about how they would readjust
There's
themselves.
board met last week,
Yeah.
strategy session, and they've given the green light to expand.
That's great. So I think that they are now quite a long way down the track. So you're starting to see what's sustainable in the model that so I think our first conversations with them 8 or 9 years ago, they weren't as far down the track, you know, and so trying to replicate their model looked really hard, but now they're 8 or 9 years further along, there's probably some.
And this is not, and the debt financing isn't council debt financing.
No, it's
So just like,
you give them land reforms.
are we at a point where it is just council's responsibility is to free up land for social housing and leave
Yeah,
that?
and that is part of the regional deal. Every new development, one of the things we're trying to push is that every new development, potentially, that developer has to transfer a percentage of land to the council that would be used for affordable housing.
I think it's a must.
I think one of it.
It needs to happen, we're losing the chalets and that's.
That's
a
not
large
sure.
number of
It was apparently relatively successful in Queenstown. The
Yeah.
law changed, so the act had to act, whatever it is, cease to exist. So that's why it is one of the discussion points. We'll
Yeah.
know where it lands, but it is one of the discussion points under the
Yeah,
regional.
there are 21 families.
Sorry?
There are 21 families in the chalets, not just single people.
Yeah, 21 families, yeah.
And 180 of the people in there are Filipino, of the 270 staff. So there's, and you think we can't afford to lose the people who are in there from our workforce. Yeah, that's a big part of the conversation in terms of affordable housing. We can't afford to lose those people out of our workforce.
Yeah, I totally get the point when affordable housing is doing.
How we do it.
Well, and whether or not.
Not necessarily on Cromwell, I think it's district.
Yeah, and it might be that this board, given you've got other priorities that you want to say that, we note that this board has expressed, the need for affordable housing, but it's not like this board's trying to, you know, push it per se, and leave that to council. Why I raise that is just, we know within the Cromwell ward, there's lots of housing developments, being talked about. But yeah, that, we can just note it and let council and the regional deals take that on.
And there's lots of land that is privately owned that isn't being developed, that is right in the centre of the town.
Yeah.
Mm.
I've just added that on slide 8, which will make more sense to you when we get to it, and it's blank for a
It is also doesn't appear to be for sale, which makes it hard.
What are we?
So I brought that to the tourism ED item, on hotels, is the specific ask there for the initial stages of a strategy, or do we have a delivery model? What is the specific LTP ask to get that one started?
Suppose we don't know
I
yet.
really want this all successful.
Yeah.
I think that's still, to me, is the number one thing around here. Like there's an asset sitting there that could attract so many people and we don't have the
We don't.
support services in place to make it successful. So that's where I would fall on that one.
The specific LTP ask would be legalising in the background, making the parcels available.
Yeah, so looking at those, what might be currently reserved land or zoned something else to make sure that that zoning is possible for it being hotel accommodation.
Again, not expensive.
It won't be the biggest cost in the LTP, but it's going to be in there.
Or maybe that the opportunities for leasing rather than selling land to potential developers,
Still legally defined to do that.
Yeah,
The land, change, is primary Gordy's time, really. But it'd be really helpful for it to be in Alex's paper, and get a sense from council, because if there's any deliberate reaction to it, then Gordy knows, but basically, if there's no reaction to it, Gordy can just chug away and actually get that done before the LTP, but no harm in it going in this paper for sure.
yeah, absolutely.
And now that you said that, that's actually quite similar to the final on this page, the land use and public-private partnerships. So quick ones on delivering a reserves plan, looking for public-private relationships regarding other land near facilities, which is why I've ticked that the way it is, that is similar.
That would be similar, yeah, because it is that whole, you're looking at that public-private on that land that's adjacent. So being able to encourage people who might have parcels of land down there to develop them in a way that would be useful for the use of the hall would be.
I think public-private partnerships have their place, but I also, to Wally's point about Gear Avenue, with my pet idea around the solar farm or something, there may be opportunities to just do it. And I think that's, I don't know, I just feel like that's something we don't want to default to always doing PVPs just because it's easier, because it might not be in the best interest of our community sometimes.
Yeah.
So yes, I guess, not what I'm really saying here, but yes, but also no. Yeah.
I think if council need to employ more staff to prevent going public-private, then that needs to be reformed. But looking at what council can do with the current staff is probably short-sighted in my opinion. That's a council thing to run though, probably.
Opportunity focused, cost conscious, not cost focused.
That makes sense. That's what we're all here to do with the suggestions, really. So got plenty of stuff to figure out the nuts and bolts. And that gives us what we needed for slide 7. Now that were your top priorities that you had listed. So in slide 8, I just pulled out other things you'd referred to. The indoor sports centre we've actually already covered because that was part of another one. I just got to take it out. I think any of those that are sitting there that you would like to advocate for in this long-term plan, or did they all sort of?
I mean, the solar thing is just a land use change, right? Like,
yeah, I just added solar because it's you, so I thought it might come up.
I'm happy to just have that not there because it's either going to work or it's not going to work.
I think most of those things are covered with the things we've got on the previous page, to be fair.
I didn't do the ticking, it's taken so much time to do everything. I have added housing to that line and just took them all off. For you.
Do you guys want, budget to investigate dog park that come up today?
Yes.
Oh, we do that. It's just, I mean, it's just the scale, but 300 by 300 is probably plausible when you fence that, but 1,000 by 1,000, the realms are pretty difficult.
I think totally fencing the dog park down was Alpha Street.
I think we should just make that happen.
Just do it.
Or
It's a
at
start.
the very
It
least,
doesn't have
not
to be
getting
the
away
only
with
thing, does it?
Yeah, well, I don't think we tried to get out of the way of it with conversations that were happening years ago, and it was over COVID, and that's probably one of the reasons it fell over, because we were trying to let other people lead it and go, off you go then, yep, you can do that, but then they just didn't manage to get funding and stuff.
You'll recall that the conversation at the board at the time wasn't necessarily that Alpha was the best location.
No, that's right,
And so I was even a little more open
yeah,
about if you want a fenced dog area in the town boundaries, where might that go?
Yeah.
Albert Street being one option. Yeah. And then that bigger area that they were advocating for today.
yeah, and it sounded like there was more than one opportunity to look at different parcels of land for that as well, so that would be interesting to explore where else.
Yeah, I just know I've heard talk in the office and that Alpha's not the only careful.
The other thing to consider is whether we reach out to Velda, who owns that big block opposite Sandflat Road. She was always said she wants to hold on to that land, but wants to put it towards community use.
I think there's already been some conversations happening that aren't in the public realm yet,
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
which will come to us.
There's a lot of wild grown poplars that
Like that, yeah.
provide some shade there.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I think that she's got some thinking about what she would like that to be, and she started talking to council about it.
great.
I've taken protection for that. Does anyone want anything else added, or is that cover? And then,
One other thing,
yes,
but I don't know, if this might just be completely off topic, but ratepayers assistance scheme.
Yeah, no, still working its way through. It was supported at LGNZ, so LGNZ were making a case for it on behalf of the sector.
Would this fall under the CCB priorities, or that's more, that would be a council thing?
Well, if it's enabled through legislation and the government opened it up for solar gas and stuff, then
This is talking about rooftop.
So I think there's already a resolution.
we did, and the went to LGNZ, and so they were making the case.
Yeah,
On behalf of the sector.
I was at LGFA Stakeholders Day a few months ago, and yes, it is definitely progressing. And they did mention how there's the general scheme they were talking about, how there are conversations under regional deals about. So
And this is my meeting with Mr. Jones.
Yeah.
So
that's, I think, again, we can note the CCB's interest in the ratepayers scheme, but that's kind of, I think it will get through at a national level.
are you all happy for me to note the interest in the report? Great. Is there anything else on that one?
Thinking about this, so things like investigating dog parks, that's a little bit financial, but I mean, the LTP is really about finances, right?
So you can make provision in the
Well, no,
LTP.
budget,
Yeah.
so you could do an
For dog park.
estimate of,
Yeah.
Mhm.
And with Sandflat Road, it's gonna get felled, but that's obviously under the current LTP, is that right? Well, it must be.
There's money that's set aside for budget for that.
Yeah, and we have to put some money in for some sort of remediation, right? But is that in the current LTP as well?
But all that remediation is, in the end, it's gonna come out.
it's gonna come out of the
So
same.
it'll fund itself eventually. We might have to debt fund it if there's not enough money in it.
I think we're having a neutral at least, don't we, with those trees?
Yeah,
I think potentially,
after you've done the remediation.
potentially, yeah.
Yeah.
I think actually it's gonna cost us.
Yeah,
But at the end of the day, land sales will cover that cost, so it's just part of the whole remediation.
The only other thing that I can think of, which wasn't part of our strategy, so, but the way the Bannockburn guys were talking today, I'm just like, that junction at Bannockburn Bridge is going to be the most highly trafficked bicycle intersection in New Zealand, like a country mile. And especially when that road, eventually when the trail is built through Wanaka, Cromwell is just gonna have bikes coming at our ears. And whether or not we have to think seriously about the amount of people that will be arriving in our town with no cars. I think it's, just something that we do have to think about when it comes to urban sprawl, as well, and what we're gonna do to service those people. Because I think they're right, they will stop in Gisborne, and then they will stop in Cromwell, and then they will stop in Clyde, and they'll go through to Wanaka. We're the centre of all of it, really. And I'm not sure that we're really thinking about
How big it is.
how big that is going to be. It's going to be massive.
I think it's gonna be massive, but a lot of it depends on, being entrepreneurs. to-
And freeing up land for that, right? Like,
Well, if people have got land, there's a lot of people with a lot of opportunity on their doorstep.
Yeah,
Do you think there needs to be any road safety improvements that you want us to reflect to people?
I mean, that was the reason I was thinking about, Felton Road and whether or not there was another trail opportunity up to Bannockburn was exactly that problem. You have to cross the road 3 times on the trail at the moment.
Yeah.
Because they put it all down one side.
And you can, I mean, it's so, I mean, that could be something we reflected. I mean, there is what. The water infrastructure, once that's done, then the cycleway will be established from the bridge up to the pub and that area there. But, it was flagged, there is a paper road at the back of there between Domain and Felton. You might put that down and look, is that the potential to be developed? To bring the traffic off, and I don't know, you're gonna obviously cycle up a hill there.
No, that's what. It was
and your
like
e-bike will be
that.
flat by the time you've gone
Yeah,
from.
Crapping out near the bottom of that hill. How you want to-
It could be made into a better route to Bannockburn than Bannockburn Road itself.
Yeah, that's what,
Yeah,
so it's something that could be in the mix.
yeah.
Okay, if you want us to.
I'm just,
And see what that might.
I'm really
look
spitballing here, but,
Yeah.
planning for 10,000 cyclists
Yeah.
is probably
A good
something we
idea.
need to think about.
like. Yeah,
A good thought, and we've got staff who work in red areas, we can go back and see what they can come up
A
with.
lot of our cyclists at the moment, where the start of the trail, they get dropped here.
Yeah.
Back down to Clyde. Because Oliver's of course built the partially other accommodation.
I'm wondering how it will end up,
Or they're
because
being,
Cromwell's right in the
picked up
centre, I
from-
mentioned that they'll be arriving here rather
or they're
than.
being picked up from Queenstown and then picked up again from Clyde to take them back to Queenstown.
How long is the Kawerau trail to Gibson?
32K.
30, and Clyde's 40, isn't it?
It's 10 minutes shorter than my e-bike battery.
Which again shows planning that we need to be doing now, like in Cromwell. We're going to 10 plug and a pie, aren't
Yeah, exactly.
Well, but you look at opportunities that arose from the Dunstan Trail. You can get a burger and a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
Carrick's frothing compared to
And
what it was.
Carrick is frothing, and you look at how much that business has developed, the outside
That was
area.
dormant 10 years ago.
Yeah, it is amazing up there now,
Mm.
yeah. So those two businesses have absolutely leapt
There
on
are
that.
case
marketing,
studies of
yeah.
what could happen if you do
Yeah.
it right.
And people are coming up the hill, they're not coming across, you're not seeing necessarily people coming from Clyde when you're sitting there, they're coming up the hill and stopping, so they're, coming from town
Because they're knackered.
to look for something, yeah.
We need to make sure Sandflat Road ceiling's not off the list
Mm.
in this LTP discussion, because it comes up every single year and it keeps getting
Let's
pushed
keep
back a
Wood
year.
Stewart out of our public forum.
So,
Even we've all paid for it between us, but yes, sealing that,
Can you just explain quickly why it needs to be sealed? Just no context.
because it is.
gravel and usage and proximity to.
Where it is, it
it's
should be
connection through, from Highlands to Bannockburn.
It is a connector, yeah,
A corner cutter for people coming from quite a few different.
yeah.
It has got quite.
Is it on a download?
No,
It's part,
I've just never got
When they
there.
start harvesting the trees, the dust collection from there, could be.
But it gets submitted on every single year, so,
Yep.
and there's a case for it, it's just that I think the NZTA funding's just one stretch away, isn't it, I think, every time.
Yeah, on Marty Point Road would be another one,
What's that?
Marty Point Road.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that one comes up a lot as well.
And there's obviously the protection tick there, and there's probably a safety angle, which is in here, is there anything else you're going to stick on it?
Roundabout downtown.
Yes.
Well, there's a whole lot of road upgrades could happen around the town centre.
The thing I was thinking about was, the reduction in community available space. So when the politics does whatever the politic does.
Yeah,
And the home for the toy libraries and the mum.
Hey, Carly was meant to be speaking today, she's.
She's coming
next time.
Yeah,
I think it needs to be included there because I think eventually that could be
I think.
a thing. And
I've been saying a community trust, I think that the value of the land in Cromwell is getting such that you're not getting the offers of free space like you do in other little towns, like, oh, the church will say, you have this little building out the back.
Too valuable to give
It's
away.
becoming too valuable, and so what do you do for those community activities that you want to have in the community for social cohesion?
what sort of state is that building in? I know when I drove past it the other day, it wasn't looking brilliant.
But Holly is also
Oh,
offered
quite a
that,
thing,
Holly's also offered a site visit down at Bannockburn, and I think it would be useful for the board to understand where the politics at and its thinking and to see where they're at.
So what's the LTP thing there though, Bex?
This purchase of the,
Future, is
Of
it future
the-
thing?
is
Well, I
that
don't know.
for supporting a community group to,
Or it's thinking about some thought needs to happen, and it might be town centre, but some thought about what happens with community organisations as the town continues to.
So this is essentially the first, for the next 3 years, it's a strategy piece, is it? It's a strategy piece and then potentially identifying that and then it'll go into 2030, 2030.
I mean, it's the same with things like when the mini muscles stuff
Yeah.
that's now at the bowling club and it's only one day a week, whereas it used to be somewhere else where they had used
Squash
it.
club for a while. It's,
Yeah,
they've been all
things
over the
move
place.
around because they
Yeah,
can't
because
find
they have-
permanent home.
Yeah.
The other thing is
karate class, stuff
making
like that will
the
move.
new facility by the lake commercially viable means more commercial stuff and less community stuff. So having a community space that is a bit more earthy and far less cost,
Yeah.
I think is.
Here's the whole of the community, now you can't afford that,
Yeah,
we're
yeah.
shoving back from that girl.
But that's, but
Rest that.
for, I don't know, for men's yoga on a Wednesday night, you don't need, yeah.
Don't tell them that yet. Get it out.
And I should say, this is the board's last chance at this conversation. It's always helpful to get this stuff early in the LTP, but like we can change budgets right up until 30 June next year. It just gets harder and harder through the process if there's particular projects. So if there's anything that, because it's been a long day for you all, if there's anything that, oh my God, actually that was something we should have raised, just flick it to Alex and I. Maybe go via Anna so that all the board sort of agree to pop it in, to get it in the paper. But it's, again, like still in April, May, this board can still be suggesting things. In terms of budget entry, it really is going to be start budget conversations in April with council. It's really July, August where we start really finalising stuff, getting the financial strategy sorted, with the goal with the whole draft LTP to be done by the end of the year. So that's sort of the time frame. So today's not the last.
Even the, sorry, going back to that, even the cycle truck, they talked about toilets. There's no public toilets.
That's right.
Not that's public toilets.
A long bike.
It could be, yeah, I mean, because it's the mains up there,
It's a good one.
but commercial for that.
Yeah.
But yes,
Yeah, it's a good
you
one.
do see toilets.
Pierce the road shut
On
on
the roadside, if they need business, it goes away in the car.
You know, on the Pearson Road.
Build toilets, everyone will use the new hall, they'll just go there.
They will, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, by flat white, you toilet.
I don't like his toilet, yeah.
We get turnstiles like in Europe, you have to put your dollar in. So.
Is there anything else?
Food for us.
We just need,
Food for we do.
so Paul do all of our chief financial officer, he will do all the budgeting with you, but we just need to sort of give him a gauge of if these are high, medium or low. So just run through the list one more time and just tell me relative to each other, if you think that's a higher one, a medium one or a lower one. And that's our last task, and then I'll leave you to your evidence. So then from our master plan, at this step, is that a high amount of funding you're looking for, moderate or challenging?
I don't think we're looking at, I think that,
It's part of our regional.
Yeah.
I think it's gonna come into your regional stuff, I think that's low from us.
I say, doesn't the town, depends what context we're talking, but doesn't the town seem to come under the Cromwell Master Plan?
Yeah, but the town centres where is high.
That's high.
Mhm.
Yeah.
We just don't want to scare our finance people, so you know, where some bigger ones might be sitting.
Town centre.
That's
We dropped the town centre last term, so we're picking it up this term.
Yeah,
Getting a sport and recreation precinct strategy shouldn't be a hugely expensive undertaking.
some
Building a sport and recreation thing becomes something much
For
bigger.
PDP.
Yeah,
Yeah, I've put low for those last two just because they're all scoping and planning, which is.
yeah, that's really the town centres are probably the big ticket item in terms of money for us in the next round.
And flat road ceilings relatively low to operational.
For the rolling budget, it's,
Yeah. Community spaces, you're also scoping, ratepayers assistance, getting these activated governments will pop low. Housing, what do you want to put on that one? When you're at on there?
Well, I think that's gonna come under some of the regional stuff as well, because if you're looking at like the Queenstown chip and emulating it or becoming a part of it, then that fits in there.
Yeah, that's my council, but we want to have time, it's my council expense, isn't it?
The dog park, is that potentially a more moderate cost because it's more delivery than the others?
Fencing is quite expensive, but it depends on, because it could be used at pace, it just could go straight onto the dog fence. So there's a combination of how that, is it just dog owners who pay for that, or is there a amenity value for the community that then you rate your community? So that's the discussion that will come out in the funding the financing.
Yes, you're right, the cycle should pay for the toilet.
Yeah.
I put low to medium for the toilets. I feel like an expert on public toilets at this point in my job, and I put low for Bannockburn Junction.
Just going back to that, what do you guys think, like, about, dog parks being funded on
Some councils will be funded, 80% on fees, 20% on community rates. Others will go 100% on fees. So it just depends on whether.
And then
This
for people who
council
don't
funds
use
all dogs 100% on fees.
just like the people when we're funding pools.
It's a communication thing, because dog owners pay the fees, right, and then you put them up and they had it even more.
And we did put them up quite a lot last.
75, $75 for a normal dog.
Yeah.
$12 for a working dog. It covers the upgrade to the kennels. It covers the gentleman we have who does, all the dogs cost. And the administrative requirement and the cost to administering the dog food process on behalf of the government. So it pretty much just covers its cost.
That's the sort of communication that people just need to know.
Yeah.
And actually, as part of the LTP, the council will go back through all its activities and under this financial strategy to say, should that be adjustment? Should that be 100% paid for by dog food? Or is there amenity value? But it's good to have dogs.
How does it work?
Yeah,
with the
well, I
criteria?
also
Is the
think-
dog fees for all dogs in the district?
Yeah.
So how would that work when we're going out?
So,
Everyone would pay.
There'll be community dog parks in other areas potentially.
If they want that,
Tabby will have to have theirs, but they've spent the.
but you know, it's sort of more in bigger urban areas, obviously.
I still think it's probably a relatively low cost when you're comparing it to the cost of what might go into the town centre or the hall. It's a low
It's
cost.
like, yeah, I think the cemetery cost for the replicants is 50K.
Yeah,
Yeah.
We
Yeah,
do
yeah,
have,
if it-
Not just.
add a dog to everyone's fees and let's get it done.
we do have staff in this team who can figure out how for you as well. If you give them the idea, they can bring you some options. So that's open to you. The next step for us is for me to write this up with the other two boards and take it to the March council meeting. I'm sure Sarah will update you on that before I see you in April and May, but I'll be back in April and May, or Saskia or Bex or Amelia to give you an update on how that went and what will be next. If anything else comes, as long as you can spell both Saskia and I's awkward names, just email us the suggestions and we'll go from there. Our parents made that hard for you both, sorry.
Oh, out of the box, isn't it?
Awesome.
That was really well, yeah. So
Thank you.
maybe change that column so the rest of this, the
Right.
name of it, so the rest of the
And then
boards don't get
The financing?
funding, yeah.
Yes, we do.
We're offline. We're offline.